Father,
Lieber himmlischer Vater,
we thank you for this new day of life.
danken wir für diesen neuen Tag des Lebens.
Please help us to understand your word today,
Bitte hilf uns heute dein Wort zu verstehen,
and it will cleanse us from all uncleanness,
dass es uns von aller Unreinheit reinigen möge
and that we would be also doers of the word.
und dass wir auch Täter des Wortes sind.
In Jesus' name,
In Jesu Namen.
amen.
Amen.
Okay, good morning everyone.
Guten Morgen alle zusammen.
Let's begin by going to Daniel chapter 2.
Lass uns anfangen, indem wir zu Daniel 2 gehen.
Now, there's a principle when you come to study God's Word.
Und es gibt da ein Prinzip, wenn wir zum Studium von Gottes Wort kommen.
It says when you think you know something, you really know nothing at all.
Das Prinzip ist, dass wenn du denkst, dass du bereits schon etwas erkannt hast, so wisse, dass du noch nicht wirklich erkannt hast.
Okay, so as soon as you think that you know something, you're really closing God's Word to your mind.
Sobald du denkst, dass du bereits schon etwas weißt, verschließt du deinen Verstand für Gottes Wort.
Okay, so I don't profess to fully understand this, but I'm just going to lay out what I see, and then we will let the Lord unfold this to us.
Also ich gebe jetzt nicht vor, das schon völlig verstanden zu haben, aber ich möchte jetzt einfach auslegen, was ich sehe und dann dem Herrn das überlassen, das alles völlig zu entfalten.
Okay, now let's let's begin in verse 13.
Lass uns in Daniel 2, Vers 13 beginnen.
It says, "And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain." Right? So, what point is this prophetically?
Welcher Zeitpunkt ist das prophetisch gesehen?
Yeah, it's the midnight cry, where you come face to face with death, right?
Mitternachtsruf, wo du mit dem Tod ins Angesicht kommst.
Okay, so it doesn't really matter which one we deal with. We've got the two Sunday laws here, right? So just
Also ist letztendlich erstmal egal, welche Sonntagsgesetze wir uns jetzt anschauen.
let's do this one because it's closer, right?
Lass uns jetzt hier dieses Sonntagsgesetz nehmen, weil es
So
hier näher an mir ist, wo ich gerade stehe.
so here is the death decree, right?
Also hier ist das Todesdekret.
Now,
I mean, would be rather the first one because he says you're the head of gold and all these things.
yes, but it doesn't matter. You see, I'm not denying that point, but that's
Also in Daniel 2 wäre im ersten Sonntagsgesetz, weil er dann sagt, das Haupt aus Gold und dann geht es runter die Statue, aber jetzt für dieses Studium scheint es nicht von Bedeutung zu sein.
For instance, in the line of Pharaoh, you have these Pharaoh here and Pharaoh here. You have these two Sunday laws, right?
Also in der Linie von Mose hast du ja diese zwei Pharaonen hier und dort, diese zwei Sonntagsgesetze.
So, when you come to this point of the line of Pharaoh, you have these 3 plagues followed by 7 plagues, right?
Und wenn wir hier in diese Linie, also zu diesem Pharao hier kommen, haben wir die ersten 3 Plagen, gefolgt von den 7 letzten Plagen.
Right?
Richtig?
And what do these 7 plagues here typify?
Und was schatten diese 7 Plagen hier voraus?
Yes, but
Schatten die 7 letzten Plagen auch voraus, ja.
what is it called, that time period?
Aber wie wird diese Zeit hier genannt?
Right, it typifies the time of Jacob's trouble, right?
Schattet die Zeit von Jakobs Trübsal
When you
voraus.
come face to face with death, right?
Wenn du mit dem Tod ins Angesicht kommst.
Okay, so, and it says that the midnight cry is the close of probation. Right? So you got all these little markers there showing you that this is typifying this final test where God's name is going to be glorified, right?
Das ist das Mitternachtsruf, also das Ende der Gnadenzeit vorausschattet und das ist dann der finale Test, wo Gott sich verherrlichen soll.
Okay. Right, so this decree goes forward to slay Daniel. So for Daniel, in this illustration, it's typifying the time of Jacob's trouble. Right?
Es geht dann dieses Dekret hier vorwärts, dass Daniel getötet werden soll. Und für Daniel ist das dann sozusagen wie eine Vorausschattung für diese finale Prüfung unter dem Ende der Gnadenzeit.
Okay, so just go to this next quote.
Jetzt zum nächsten Zitat hier, was ich gepostet habe.
I've just only posted one quote. It's from Patriarchs and Prophets.
Jetzt nur ein Zitat gepostet hier von Patriarchen und Propheten.
It says, Jacob's experience during that night of wrestling and anguish represents the trial through which the people of God must pass before Christ's second coming. Right? So, if you were to take the Reformline of Miller, you have John here, right?
So, wenn wir die Reformlinie von Miller nehmen, hätten wir ja Johannes hier am Stehen.
And he's been given a revelation, right?
Und Johannes wird hier eine Offenbarung gegeben.
And it's the second advent, right?
Das ist die Wiederkunft.
Okay, so here you have the second advent, and October 22nd at the end was typifying the second advent, right?
Auch der 22. Oktober hier am Ende schattete auch die Wiederkunft voraus.
Okay, so the point I'm making is it doesn't really matter which one you use. You have the same pattern, right?
Den Punkt, den ich machen möchte, ist letztendlich, ist egal welches Sonntagsgesetz du jetzt hier nimmst in der Darstellung, ist dasselbe Muster.
Because if you're here, it's the same time of trouble, right?
Wenn du jetzt hier bist, ist es sozusagen dieselbe Zeit der Trübsal.
Okay, so go back to Daniel 2 and let's jump to verse 16.
Gehen wir zurück zu Daniel 2, Vers 16.
So it says, Then Daniel went and desired of the king that he would give him time, and that he would show the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. So, what's the only thing that's going
Vers
to
18.
keep Daniel and his colleagues from perishing?
Also was ist das Einzige, was Daniel und seine Kollegen davon abhalten wird, umzukommen?
A revelation, right?
Eine Offenbarung.
It's an understanding of his dream, right? So it's something spiritual that he has to bring to the king,
Also ein
right?
Verständnis des Traumes ist etwas Geistliches, was er dem König darlegen muss.
Right?
Richtig?
Yes.
Okay. So, and that's what they're doing now. So they're in this time of wrestling with God, that the Lord would reveal this thing to them, that they can present it before the king, right?
Also sie sind in dieser Zeit, wo sie jetzt mit dem Herrn ringen, und dass der Herr ihnen das offenbart, sodass sie das dem König darlegen können.
Okay, verse 19.
Vers 19.
Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changeth the times and seasons, he removeth kings and setteth up kings, he giveth wisdom to the wise, and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things, he knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. I thank thee and praise thee, O thou God of my fathers, who hast given me wisdom and might. What has the Lord given him?
Was hat der Herr ihm gegeben, bis Vers 22?
Wisdom and might. And has
Weisheit und Macht.
and has made known unto me now what we desired of thee, for thou hast made known unto us the king's matter. Right? Now, just 1 second, just go to Daniel 1.
Gehen wir nochmal zu Daniel 1.
So, now in Daniel 1, the illustration is slightly different because he says, prove me 10 days, right?
Daniel 1 ist die Illustration ein wenig anders, denn da sagt er, prüfe mich 10 Tage lang.
In verse 15,
Vers 15 sagt er, das ist in Daniel 1.
and at the end of 10 days their countenances appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat. Thus Melchizedek took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink and gave them pulse. As for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. So what did the Lord do?
Was hat der Herr ihnen getan?
He gave them something, right?
Er hat ihnen etwas gegeben.
He gave them wisdom and skill, right?
Er gab ihnen Weisheit und Fähigkeit.
So when you go back to Daniel 2 and verse 23,
Jetzt zurückgehen zu Daniel 2, Vers 23 gehen.
it says, I thank thee and praise thee, O thou God of my fathers, who has given me wisdom and might. God gave him something, right?
Also dort hat Gott ihnen auch etwas gegeben.
Right, try not to look too excited, right? I want you to nod and acknowledge as we're going along so I know that everybody's following, right?
Ich einfach nur, dass wir erkennen, dass jeder in der Lage ist zu folgen.
So, the point is, I want to make that, right? It's marking this point where you're standing before this point where you stand before the civil powers and you receive a blessing, right?
Der Punkt hier, wo du vor den Staatsmächten stehst und du einen Segen hier empfängst.
Now, when we look at the vision of the light and the exceeding bright light, right? Where's the light?
Wenn wir die Vision anschauen von Licht und dem überaus hellen Licht, wo ist das Licht markiert?
At the beginning, right?
Am Anfang.
What is light?
Und was ist Licht?
Where does it come from?
Wo kommt das her?
Yeah, where does it come from? It comes from God, right? It comes from heaven,
Wo
right?
kommt das her? Von Gott, vom Himmel.
So the light is a blessing from heaven, right?
Das Licht ist eine Segnung aus dem Himmel.
So I want to suggest that this blessing that they're receiving is the light, right?
Ich möchte vorschlagen, dass diese Segnung, die sie erhalten, das Licht ist.
But they're not fully delivered yet,
Aber sie sind noch nicht völlig befreit worden.
okay? Because they still have to receive the exceeding bright light, right?
Sie müssen immer noch das überaus helle Licht bekommen.
Okay, so I want you to try and see this, right?
Das möchte ich euch zeigen.
But when they get this light here, right? So back to Daniel 2 and verse 23.
Wenn sie jetzt hier dieses Licht erhalten, wir gehen mal zurück zu Daniel 2, Vers 23.
It says, I thank thee and praise thee, O God of my fathers, who has given me wisdom and might, and has made known unto me now what we desire of thee, for thou hast now made known unto us the king's matter. So this right here is where we put the prediction on paper, right?
Das hier, wo wir die Vorhersage auch zu Papier gebracht haben.
Right? It's a point where you understand something and you put down basically what we understand, right?
Ein Punkt, wo du etwas verstehst und du setzt das jetzt sozusagen oder schreibst das jetzt nieder oder verfasst das jetzt.
So, do we know the king's matter at this point?
An diesem Punkt verstehen wir die Sache des Königs.
Well, we understand quite a lot of things, right? We wouldn't be predicting something if we didn't understand it. That's my point,
Wir
right?
verstehen ja einige Sachen. Wir würden ja nicht etwas hervorsagen können, wenn wir nicht Sachen verstehen würden.
Okay, so verse 24.
Vers 24.
Therefore Daniel went in unto Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. So, what was Arioch ordained to do?
Und was war Arioch eingesetzt zu tun?
Right. So the death decree, right?
Er ist der Zerstörer, er soll jetzt hier alle töten.
Arioch is ordained to destroy, right?
Also im Todesdekret ist Arioch eingesetzt zu zerstören.
So who's Arioch?
Wer ist also Arioch?
He's the destroyer, right?
Er ist dieser zerstörerische
Or
Engel.
he's the agent that's going to do that work, right?
Er ist dieses Werkzeug, dieses Werk zu vollbringen.
But when Daniel receives this blessing, he can go now to the destroyer and say, Destroy not the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show unto the king the interpretation. Right?
Also jetzt hier, nachdem Daniel diese Segnung erhalten hat, kann er jetzt zu Arioch sagen, das was er in Vers 24 sagt, bring mich vor den König und zerstöre nicht die Weisen Babylons.
So what enables Daniel to say to the destroyer, destroy not?
Also was befähigt Daniel zu dem Zerstörer zu sagen, zerstöre nicht?
The light, the blessing from heaven,
Das
right?
Licht, diese Segnung vom Himmel.
Okay, so in one sense, Satan now is obeying the voice of Daniel, right?
Also in einem Sinne gehorcht Satan jetzt die Stimme von Daniel.
Because of this light that Daniel has received, Satan's hand is stayed, right?
Wegen dem Licht, was Daniel erhalten hat, ist jetzt Satans Hand gehalten.
Because if he had received that light, they would have been destroyed.
Hätten sie nicht dieses Licht erhalten, dann wären sie nicht erhalten, dann wären sie zerstört worden.
Now just go to Romans 13, verse 1.
Gehen wir zu Römer 13, Vers 1.
It says, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are what? Ordained of God. So,
Die Mächte, die sind von Gott eingesetzt.
what was Arioch given to do?
Was wurde Arioch aufgetragen zu tun?
He was ordained to destroy,
Er
right?
wurde eingesetzt zu zerstören.
We know that this is speaking about the civil powers, which is the dragon, it's the destroying, it's the destroyer.
Und wir wissen, dass hier in Römer 13 es über diese Staatsmächte spricht, die der Drache sind, die auch der Zerstörer ist.
Okay, so it says, whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God.
Vers
And
2.
they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. So it's only for the evil that you've got to worry. If you're, this is like what Lawrence was talking about last night. When you're righteous, you don't have to worry about what they say to you, right?
Also letztendlich, du musst die Herrscher nur fürchten, wenn du Böses tust. Wenn du gerecht bist, dann musst du sie nicht fürchten.
For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. How's he going to execute wrath? What does he use?
Bis Vers 4. Wie wird er den Zorn ausführen? Was wird er benutzen?
The sword.
Er wird das Schwert benutzen.
Okay. Everybody following?
Also der Staatsmacht wird das Schwert
Okay.
benutzen. Jeder kann folgen?
So in this scenario, Arioch was the one that was ordained of God to go destroy those that were doing evil, right?
Also in diesem Szenario ist dann Arioch eingesetzt worden, vorwärts zu gehen und diejenigen zu zerstören, die Böses getan haben.
But Daniel receives a blessing from God here, right?
Aber Daniel erhält dort eine Segnung von Gott.
And what is he now saying?
Und was sagt er jetzt?
Destroy not the wise men of Babylon. So what's he doing?
Zerstöre die Weisen Babylons nicht. Was tut er für dich?
Right, he's now got a measure of the Spirit and he begins interceding for them, right?
Er hat jetzt ein Maß des Geistes bekommen und fängt an, Fürbitte zu tun.
Okay, now keep that point in your mind.
Halte jetzt diesen Punkt im Verstand.
Okay. So now go back to Daniel verse 2 and verse 25.
Gehen wir zurück zu Daniel 2, Vers 25.
It says, Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste. How does he bring him in?
Wie hat er ihn hineingebracht? In Eile.
So you got Arioch here brings him in. I'll just put in haste, right? So just we got the markers there. So
Arioch bringt Daniel hier in Eile hinein.
Okay, now keep your place in Daniel 2. Go to Genesis 41
Haltet euren Finger an Daniel 2, gehen wir zu 1. Mose 41.
because we're going to go to Joseph when he's also brought out of the dungeon and brought before Pharaoh.
Wir wollen jetzt zur Geschichte von Josef gehen, wo er auch aus dem Gefängnis gebracht wird und dann vor den Pharao gestellt wird.
Because what I want you to see here, who's bringing Daniel before the king?
Also wer bringt den Daniel vor den König?
Arioch, right?
Arioch.
It's like this mediator, right? It's like somebody that brings you in before the king, says, King, I have a man here that can interpret the vision.
Also wie ein Mittler, der sagt letztendlich, König, ich habe hier einen Mann gefunden, der dir den Traum deuten kann.
Right?
Richtig?
So, in Genesis 41 verse 14 it says, Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph. Why?
Also 1. Mose 41, Vers 14, warum hat der Pharao da den Josef gerufen?
Because the butler says, I know a man that can interpret the vision to you.
Weil
Right?
der Mundschenk ja gesagt hat, ich kenne einen Mann, der dir diese Vision deuten kann.
So, the butler is like Arioch. Right?
Also der Mundschenk ist wie Arioch.
So, it says, Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him in, how? Hastily out of the dungeon. He shaved himself and changed his raiment and came into Pharaoh. So the change of raiment is like a type of this garment that he's wearing. It's a type of righteousness, right?
Also auch hier Josef wird hastig oder schnell, eilig reingebracht. Und dieser Kleiderwechsel ist hier ein Typus für Typo, oder wie sie?
A type of righteousness.
Also ein Typus für Gerechtigkeit.
But at the end, right after he's given it, he gets this fine linen garment and all these reparations given to him. He gets all these rewards put on. So you can see there's a difference between this and after he's
Aber
given the
am
revelation.
Ende, nachdem er den Traum gedeutet hat, kriegt er ja nochmal Kleider angezogen, diese kostbaren Leinwand und so weiter. Und er kriegt die ganzen Reparaturzahlungen. Also es ist ein Unterschied zwischen diesen Kleidern und den Kleidern, nachdem er die Vorhersage gegeben hat.
Okay, but go to Daniel 5. This is where we were yesterday,
Dann gehen wir jetzt zu Daniel 5, das ist ja, wo wir gestern waren.
verse 13.
Daniel 5, Vers 13.
It says, Then was Daniel brought in before the king. Why?
Dann ist Daniel vor den König gebracht worden. Warum?
Okay, the queen. The
Wegen-
queen says, I know a man that can interpret to you the vision, right?
Der Königin, die hat ja gesagt, ich kenne einen Mann, der dir diese Vision deuten kann.
So you can see all three of these points are this same point in time, right?
Sie können sehen, alle diese drei Zeitpunkte sind selbe Zeitpunkt.
2 times Daniel and Joseph, they're standing now, and they are going to give them this understanding before it comes to pass, right?
Zweimal hier bei Daniel und einmal bei Josef. Und sie stehen jetzt jeweils hier vor dem König und geben jetzt hier dieses Verständnis, was bald passieren wird.
Okay, so I just want you to see that you have this 3 times they're all standing here, and it's because of this light, right, that comes upon them. It stays the hand of the destroyer.
Also sie stehen jetzt jeweils hier und es ist wegen diesem Licht, dass dann die Hand des Zerstörers zurückgehalten wird.
Okay, now go to 1 Samuel chapter 25.
Gehen wir zu 1. Samuel Kapitel 25.
It says, all the books of the Bible meet and end in the Revelation, right?
Sagt er, alle Bücher der Bibel treffen und enden im Buch der Offenbarung.
And Daniel is the complement, or Revelation is the complement to the book of Daniel.
Und
Yeah, so
Daniel
all one
ist,
book.
ist sozusagen der Zusatz zum Buch Offenbarung. Es ist alles ein Buch.
So in order to get clarity and confirmation on these thoughts, we see the same things written elsewhere, right?
Deswegen, um Klarheit und Bestätigung für diese Gedanken zu bekommen, müssen wir diese Dinge auch woanders noch geschrieben finden.
So 1 Samuel 25 verse 13.
1. Samuel 25, Vers 13.
And David said unto his men, Gird ye on every man his sword, and they girded on every man his sword. What are they putting on?
Was ziehen sie an?
The sword.
Schwert.
Who is David and his men here?
Wer sind David und seine Männer hier?
They have been ordained to wield the sword, right? They're going to come bring punishment upon those that do evil. And in this sense, who is it speaking about?
Hier eingesetzt, um das Schwert zu führen und jetzt hier Bestrafung über diejenigen zu bringen, die Böses getan haben. Und wer war das hier in der Geschichte?
Nabal, right?
Das war Nabal.
Yeah, foolish, his name is, right?
Nabal und sein Name bedeutet ja
But-
Tor.
Not just Nabal, all of Nabal's household were going to be destroyed, right?
All the males. Also alle männlichen von Nabals Haushalt sollten zerstört werden.
Why do you say that? Does it
All
say-
that pisses against the wall.
I'm not going to think too hard about that one, right? But the point is that it's Nabal's household that's about to be destroyed. Right?
Also Nabals Haushalt sollte zerstört werden.
Now I know that the destroying angel, it says, spare not man nor woman, child or anything. So I don't know that whether that be true or not, what you're saying there. The fact is that just because you're a female, you're not exempt from this, right?
Also letztendlich in anderen Geschichten steht ja, dass keiner verschont werden soll, auch nicht Frauen und Kinder und so weiter. Deswegen, ja, weiß ich jetzt hier in der Sache jetzt nicht, ob
Okay.
die Frauen nicht auch da zerstört werden sollten.
Okay, so it says, Gird ye on every man his sword, and they girded on every man his sword, and David also girded on his sword, and there went up David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff. So right here, you have
Vers
David
13 gelesen.
plus 400 men, right?
Wir haben also David jetzt hier plus 400 Männer.
And they've girded on the sword, and they're coming to destroy the wicked.
Und sie gürten jetzt das Schwert und sie kommen, um die Gottlosen zu zerstören.
But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. But the men were very good to us, and we were not hurt, neither missed we anything, as long as we were conversant with them when we were in the fields. They were a wall unto us both by day and by night and day, all the while we were with them, keeping the sheep. Now, therefore, no one consider what thou wilt do, for evil is determined against our master. Now, in Romans 13, what was the one that wielded the sword? What was his purpose?
In Römer 13, wer war derjenige, der das Schwert geführt hat? Was war sein Sinn und Zweck?
He was an avenger for those that did evil, right?
Er war ein Rächer für diejenigen, die Böses getan haben.
And he would bring evil upon them.
Und er würde Böses über sie bringen.
For evil is determined against our master and against all his household, right? So the whole household was about to be destroyed.
Das gesamte Haushalt sollte jetzt hier zerstört werden.
For he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot speak to him. Then Abigail did what?
Dann hat Abigail was gemacht.
She makes haste, right?
Die eilt jetzt.
And took 200 loaves and 2 bottles of wine and 5 sheep ready dressed and 5 measures of parched corn and 100 clusters of raisins and 200 cakes of figs and laid them on asses. What is she doing?
Was tut sie?
Okay, she's bringing an offering, right?
Sie bringt eine Opfergabe.
And she said unto her servants, Go on before me, behold, I come after you. But she told not her husband Nabal. And it was so, as she rode on the ass, that she came down by the covert of the hill, and behold, David and his men came down against her, and she met them. Now David had said, Surely in vain have I kept all that this fellow hath in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertained unto him. And he hath requited me evil for good. So and more also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave of all that pertain to him by the morning any that pisseth against the wall. And when Abigail saw David, she hasted and lighted off the ass, and fell before David on her face, and bowed herself to the ground.
Vers 23.
So when she comes before David, she hastes And she bows herself before him, right?
Wenn sie jetzt hier vor David kommt, macht sie schnell oder eilt und fällt schnell auf ihr Angesicht.
Okay. And fell at his feet and said, Upon me, my Lord, upon me let this iniquity be. What is she doing?
Was tut sie jetzt hier?
She begins to intercede.
Also sie fängt an, Fürbitte zu tun.
And let thine handmaid, I pray thee, speak in thine audience, and hear the words of thine handmaid. Let not my Lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, even Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. So she's basically saying the same as what Daniel was saying. She says, these foolish priests, they can't tell you the vision.
Sie sagt letztendlich genau dasselbe, was Daniel gesagt hat. Diese törichten Priester oder diese Magier und so weiter, die können dir den Traum nicht deuten.
When Daniel and the three young men came before Melzar, did he see the difference between the two classes?
Also als Daniel und seine drei Freunde vor Melzar kamen, konnte er den Unterschied zwischen den zwei Klassen sehen.
Yeah, so right there is marking two
Yeah.
classes have been already
Also genau,
easily seen, right?
genau dort markiert ist, wo zwei Klassen deutlich zu sehen sind, voneinander zu unterscheiden sind.
She says, Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, thine handmaid, saw not the young men of my Lord, whom thou didst send. Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, seeing the Lord hath withholden thee from coming to shed blood and from avenging himself. So when she brings this offering,
Vers
what does it
26.
do?
Wenn sie das Opfer hier bringt, was tut das jetzt hier?
Slay not the wise men of Babylon, right?
Also es stoppt den Zerstörer, so wie bei Daniel, der gesagt hat, töte die Weisen Babylons nicht.
So I want to suggest that the light that the Lord gives you, right, is the offering, right?
Deswegen ich möchte vorschlagen, dass das Licht, was der Herr dir gibt, diese Opfergabe ist.
Now just go to Luke. If I remember rightly, which Luke 11. Yes.
For the tree.
No, no. Is it 13 maybe? Luke.
Lukas,
Yeah, Luke 11 and verse 5.
Lukas 11, Vers 5.
And he said to them, Which of you shall have a friend, and shall go to him at midnight, and shall say unto him, Friend, lend me 3 loaves. For a friend of mine is in his journey, and is come to me, and I have nothing to set before him. What is this person knocking on the door and asking for?
Vers 5 und 6 haben wir gelesen. Was kommt jetzt diese Person zu tun hier? Wofür klopft sie an?
An offering to set before somebody who was on a long journey, right?
Klopft, um eine Opfergabe zu erhalten für jemanden, der auf einer langen Reise war.
You finish what I said? To set before somebody who's on a long journey, right? Go, now just keep your place there in Luke 11. We'll come back to that. Go to Matthew chapter 25.
Dann bringen wir hier in Lukas 11, gehen wir zu Matthäus 25.
Verse 14.
Vers 25, Vers 14.
For the kingdom of heaven is as a man travelling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey. Where did he take his journey to?
Vers 15. Wohin nimmt er jetzt seine Reise? In
To a far country.
ein fernes Land.
So go back to Luke 11,
Gehen wir zurück zu Lukas 11,
verse 5.
Vers 5.
What did Christ say to the man that came in to the wedding without a garment on?
Was hat Christus zu dem Mann gesagt, der zur Hochzeit ohne ein Kleid ankam.
No, he said friend.
Er hat gesagt, Freund.
Right? The first thing he said to him was, friend, how camest thou in hither without a wedding garment? Right?
Er hat gesagt, Freund, wie bist du hier hineingekommen ohne ein Hochzeitsgewand?
And it says here, and he said to them, which of you shall have a what? Friend, and shall go unto him at midnight and say unto him, friend, lend me 3 loaves. For a friend of mine is in his journey, is come to me, and I have nothing to set before him.
Das ist Vers 6 nochmal.
So when the one returns from his long journey, what have you got to set before him?
Also wenn jemand von der langen Reise zurückkommt, was musst du vor ihn bringen?
An offering,
Eine Opfergabe.
right? So I have some thoughts on this, right? Is that
Ein paar Gedanken dazu.
the light is the offering,
Dass
right?
das Licht diese Opfergabe ist.
Okay? Can't give anything, so it's given to you, right? To present to Christ, right?
Also du kannst ja selbst nichts erzeugen, aber es ist dir gegeben, um es Christus wiederzugeben.
The Bible says, this is life eternal, that they might know thee, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom thou hast sent, right?
Also die Bibel sagt ja, das ist das ewige Leben, dass sie dich, den allein wahren Gott, erkennen und Jesus Christus, den du gesandt hast.
And it says, study to show thyself approved unto God, right?
Und dann sagt er auch, studiere, um dich selbst für Gott als bewährt zu erweisen.
What did Daniel say to Melzar?
Was hat Daniel dem Melzer gesagt?
Test uns.
Prove thy servant 10 days, right?
Ja, prüfe deine Knechte 10 Tage.
So at the end of the 10 days, he was going to be proved, right?
Also am Ende der 10 Tage sollte er geprüft werden.
And you're going to be proved whether you have this offering, whether you have a knowledge of God sufficient to be able to give the prediction, right?
Du wirst dann geprüft, ob du genug Erkenntnis von Gott hast, um diese Vorhersage geben zu können.
Because you can only give the prediction if you know and have confidence of what God is going to do,
Du
right?
kannst dir nur die Vorhersage geben, wenn du weißt und Vertrauen in das hast, was Gott tun wird.
Right? It's like a revelation before the revelation,
Das
right?
ist wie eine Offenbarung vor der völligen Offenbarung.
Okay, because John's getting the revelation right at the end. He's getting the whole thing, right?
Weil Johannes erhält die Offenbarung ja ganz am Ende, er kriegt dann das Gesamte offenbart.
So did Daniel get a revelation before the revelation?
Daniel eine Offenbarung vor der Offenbarung bekommen?
Yes, Daniel 8, Daniel 9, all these things. He's getting this revelation, and then at the end, he gets this full revelation, right?
Daniel 8, Daniel 9 und dann am Ende kriegt er diese völlige Offenbarung.
So it's like the light before the exceeding bright light.
Wie das Licht, das vor dem überaus hellen Licht kommt.
Okay, so let's go back to 1 Samuel 25.
Jetzt zurück zu 1. Samuel 25.
So Abigail represents somebody here that's bringing something to set before her Lord, right, who's been on his long journey, right?
Abigail steht jetzt jemand da, der etwas vor dem Herrn bringt, der von seiner langen Reise zurückkommt.
Verse 26.
Vers 26.
Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord liveth and as thy soul liveth, seeing the Lord hath withholden thee from coming to shed blood and from avenging thyself with thine own hand, now let thine enemies and they that seek evil to my Lord be as Nabal. And now this blessing which thine handmaid hath brought unto my Lord, let it even be given unto the young men that follow my Lord. So she's laying something now before him. She's given him this offering.
Vers
Right?
27. Sie bringt jetzt hier etwas vor ihn und sie reicht diese Opfergabe jetzt dar.
What's she asking for now?
Und wonach fragt sie jetzt?
Verse 20. Verse 28.
Vers 28.
I pray thee, forgive the trespass of thine handmaid. So, has her sins been forgiven yet?
Sind ihre Sünden jetzt schon vergeben worden?
No, right? She's still asking
Nein.
for forgiveness of sins, right?
Bittet immer noch um die Vergebung ihrer Sünden.
For the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house, because my Lord fighteth the battles of the Lord, and evil hath not been found in thee all thy days. So what's she now doing?
Was tut sie jetzt hier?
after she says, forgive me, what's she now doing? She's making a
Nachdem
proclamation about what?
sie gefragt hat nach der Sündenvergebung, sie macht jetzt eine Verkündigung, wovon?
She's doing something. Look, it says, I pray thee forgive the trespass of that handmaid. Then there's two little dots, which is a colon, right? And then she does something.
Also sie sagt ja hier in Vers 26, bitte vergib mir meine Sünden und dann Doppelpunkt und dann tut sie etwas danach.
What is she doing? So I'm asking, it's a simple question. Just look at what she's doing.
Predicting something.
Okay, she's talking about the Lord as if she knows him, right?
Also sie gibt eine Vorhersage, sie spricht so, als ob sie den Herrn kennen würde.
She says, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house. Is that, she has confidence in what
Also denn
the Lord is going to do, right?
sie hat Vertrauen in das, was der Herr tun wird, denn sie sagt, der Herr wird das sicherlich tun.
So she's speaking with confidence about God, right?
Sie spricht also mit Zuversicht über Gott.
If you just go on back to that story, she lists a whole bunch of things.
Und wenn man zurück hier zur Geschichte geht, dann sieht man, dass sie eine ganze Reihe von Sachen aufzählt.
But jump to verse 32.
Gehen wir aber jetzt zu Vers 32.
And David said to Abigail, Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which sent thee this day to meet me. And blessed be thy advice, and blessed be thou, which hast kept me this day from coming to shed blood, and from avenging myself with mine own hand. So what was it that stayed the destroyer?
Das Vers 33. Also was war es, was den Zerstörer zurückgehalten hat?
Because she came to meet him in haste with an offering, right?
Weil sie in Eile kam und ein Opfer dargebracht hat.
Okay, so verse 34.
Vers 34.
For in very deed as the Lord God of Israel liveth, which hath kept me back from hurting thee, except thou hast hasted and come to meet me, right? So, all the two, they're all hasting there, right? It's marking this point, right?
Alle eilen hier, das markiert also diesen Punkt hier.
Surely there had not been left unto Nabal by the morning light any that pisseth against the wall. So David received of her hand that which she had brought unto him, and said unto her, Go up in peace to thine house. See, I have hearkened to thy voice, and have accepted thy person. And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a feast in his house like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunken. Therefore she told him nothing, less or more, until the morning light. But it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became as stone. Now I want to
Vers
put it to you
37.
that that's still marking this point, right?
Ich möchte euch darlegen, dass das immer hier noch diesen Punkt markiert.
Verse 38.
Vers 38.
And it came to pass about 10 days after that the Lord smote Nabal that he died. What's that?
Also was ist das jetzt hier?
It's the fulfillment of the prediction that she just told him, right?
Die Erfüllung der Vorhersage, die Abigail ja dem David zuvor gesagt hat.
He's smiting the wicked here right at the end, right?
Er schlägt die Gottlosen hier ganz am Ende.
And look what it says next.
Jetzt schaut, was es jetzt weiter sagt.
And obviously 10 days it's marking this symbol, right?
Das sind diese 10 Tage, das markiert dieses Symbol hier.
And when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be the Lord that hath pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal, and hath kept his servant from evil. For the Lord hath returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head. Who's Nabal now?
Wer ist jetzt Nabal?
No. We're not paying attention. Who is Nabal? Read what it says.
Wer ist Nabal? Lest, was das hier sagt.
What happens to Nabal?
Scapegoat.
He becomes the scapegoat.
Er ist der Sündenbock.
The sins are placed back upon his own head.
Sünden werden auf sein eigenes Haupt zurückgebracht.
And that's marking the point where Christ says it is finished or is done, right?
Das ist der Punkt, wo Christus sagt, es ist geschehen.
So you can see this pattern, right? The light up to the exceeding bright light when it's fulfilled. And of Nabal,
Also wir können jetzt hier dieses Muster sehen, das Licht bis zum überaus hellen Licht, wo dann Nabal dieser Sündenbock wird.
Is now the scapegoat, right? Okay, we see that?
Wenn ihr das sehen?
Okay, so now, because we started off with Jacob's time of trouble, so let's go to the story of Jacob.
Wir haben ja angefangen mit Jakobs Zeit der Trübsal. Gehen wir jetzt zur Geschichte von Jakob.
Go to Genesis 32.
Gehen wir zu 1. Mose 32.
And let's begin in verse 22.
Vers 22. Also 1. Mose 32, Vers 22.
Now, in this story, we're not going to have time to read it all, but what did Abigail do with the servants before she came to meet David?
In dieser Geschichte, wir haben jetzt nicht Zeit, die gesamte Geschichte zu lesen, aber was hat Abigail getan?
Yeah, what did she do before she went to meet David?
Also was hat Abigail getan mit Knechten, bevor sie David begegnet hat?
Okay, so she sends the servants beforehand, right?
Sie sendet ihre Knechte vor ihr her.
And when you read this story, Jacob does exactly the same.
Und wenn du diese Geschichte hier liest, Jakob macht genau dasselbe.
He puts them on, then he sends one group, then he sends another group, and so on, and he's at the back, right?
Also da tut Jakob genau dasselbe. Er nimmt eine Gruppe von Knechten, sendet sie vorne weg, dann die nächste Gruppe sendet sie ebenso vor sich her mit diesen Geschenken.
Okay, so verse 22.
Vers 22.
And he rose up that night and took his 2 wives and his 2 women servants and his 11 sons and passed over the ford Jabbok. And he took them and sent them over the brook and sent them over that he had. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint. And he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, What is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed. And Jacob asked him and said, Tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, Wherefore is it that thou dost ask after my name? And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. Okay, so
Bis Vers 30.
this marks this point where Jacob prevails with God and he receives the blessing.
Also das ist der Punkt, wo Jakob mit sozusagen Gott siegreich gerungen hat und jetzt den Segen bekommt.
Now, I don't know that I understand this fully, but I'm just going to give you some thoughts, and we maybe have to look at this a bit closer.
Und ich weiß nicht, ob ich das schon völlig verstehe, aber ich möchte euch ein paar Gedanken teilen und wir müssen das vielleicht noch genauer betrachten.
But if you go to the next chapter,
Aber wenn wir zum nächsten Kapitel kommen,
it's not finished, right?
dann ist es hier noch nicht zu Ende.
Because Esau is still coming, right?
Esau immer noch kommt.
It says, And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men, right? The same illustration, right?
Selbe Darstellung, also Esau kommt jetzt hier mit 400 Männern.
And he divided the children unto Leah, unto Rachel, and unto the 2 handmaids, and he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. And he passed over before them, and bowed himself to the ground 7 times, until he came near to his brother. What did he do?
Was hat er getan?
He bowed down, yeah, but how many times? Okay.
Er verbeugt sich hier 7 Mal.
Okay, now I'm open to this, and maybe this is, but we can all agree that this is the same story as 1 Samuel 25, right?
Ich bin offen noch dafür, aber wir können, denke ich, alle erstmal übereinstimmen, dass es dieselbe Geschichte wie in 1. Samuel 25 ist.
David plus his 400 and Esau plus his 400 there, parallel, and the destroyer coming to destroy the wicked.
David mit
Right?
seinen 400 Mann oder hier Esau mit seinen 400 Mann schatten beide diesen Zerstörer voraus, der gegen dich kommen wird.
The only difference is against whom they come. Right? Jacob has repented, Nabal didn't.
Also der einzige Unterschied ist halt, gegen wen sie kommen, weil Nabal hat nicht Buße getan, wohingegen Jakob sehr wohl Buße getan hat.
But it doesn't matter at this point, because the point is that the destroyer will come against everybody, and it will be seen whether you were righteous or whether you were unrighteous.
Aber
That's
das
the point.
ist in dem Punkt jetzt erstmal nicht so wichtig, denn der Zerstörer wird ja gegen jeden kommen und dann, wenn er kommt, wird offenbar werden, ob du gerecht oder ungerecht bist. Ob du
If
Buße getan hast
Abigail
oder nicht.
hadn't brought the offering, she would have died also. Right? That's the
Abigail
point.
dieses Opfer nicht gebracht, dann wäre sie auch gestorben.
Okay, the ones that bring the offering are proving that they are the righteous, right?
Also diejenigen, die diese Opfergabe bringen, die beweisen dadurch, dass sie die Gerechten sind.
So it says, and Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, behold, Esau came within 400 men, and he divided the children unto Leah and Rachel and to the two handmaids. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after Rachel, and Joseph hindermost, and he passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he come near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Now, that last verse there, what does that remind you of?
Das Vers 4, an diesem letzten Vers. An was erinnert dich das?
The prodigal son, right?
An den verlorenen Sohn.
It's like the point where you're now reconciled to one another, right?
Der Punkt, wo du jetzt wieder miteinander versöhnt bist.
But so before the reconciliation takes place, he bows himself 7 times.
Bevor diese Versöhnung stattfindet, verbeugt sich Jakob ja 7 Mal.
Now we know, and this is the point that I'm trying to understand. What is this? What is he doing, bowing 7 times here?
Also was ist das hier, wo er 7 Mal niederfällt?
Is it the if you were to take the whole time of trouble, is it the 7 times where Christ is tempted, or we know in this little fractal that the blood is sprinkled how many times upon the veil?
Ist es hier die gesamte Zeit der Trübsal oder ist es hier in dem kleinen Fraktal, wo das Blut 7 Mal besprengt wird?
Okay, so this particular one, I'm not 100% sure, but when Jacob prevails with the Lord, right? Basically, it's the point where the destroyer is stayed, because when Esau comes now with his 400 men, he reconciles himself with his brother. He doesn't slay him, right?
Weil letztendlich der Punkt ist ja, wo Jakob jetzt ja mit Gott siegreich ringt, da wird ja der Zerstörer zurückgehalten und denn Esau kommt ja hier und tötet ihn nicht, sondern er versöhnt sich mit ihm.
Okay, so this particular points here, I'm not 100% sure about.
Also diese bestimmten Punkte hier, da bin ich mir nicht ganz sicher.
But I want you to see something. In Genesis 33 verse 1, what does he do?
Ich möchte euch etwas sehen lassen, hier in Genesis 33, Vers 1, was macht er?
He lifts up his eyes, right?
Er hebt seine Augen
And he
hoch.
sees Esau, right?
Er sieht dann Esau.
So just go to Genesis 18,
Gehen wir jetzt zu Genesis 18.
because remember when Abigail hastes and sees David, what does she do?
Denn wenn Abigail ja eilt und David sieht, was macht sie?
Yeah, she gets off the ass and she bows down before him, right?
Sie kommt von ihrem Esel runter und verbeugt sich vor ihm.
Okay, so Genesis 18 verse 1.
1. Mose 18, Vers 1.
And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day, which is noon, right?
Die Hitze des Tages, das ist Mittag.
And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. So what's he doing?
Vers 2, was macht er?
He lifts up his eyes and he sees Christ and these 2 angels, right?
Also er hebt seine Augen empor, man sieht Christus und diese 2 Engel.
Right? And we know that that's a parallel to the Mount of Transfiguration, right?
Wir wissen, dass das eine Parallele ist zum Berg der Verklärung.
And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and he bowed himself toward the ground. So it's the same thing as what Abigail does. She hastes, bows herself toward the ground, right?
And they're also destroyers, right? They come to destroy.
Yeah, they're the destroying angels, right?
Also sind auch diese zerstörerischen Engel, die kommen ja um Sodom zu zerstören. Und hier sehen wir aber dasselbe wie bei Abigail. Er verbeugt sich hier zum Boden.
And what does Abraham do in this time period?
Und was tut Abraham in dieser Zeit hier?
He begins to intercede for those in Sodom, right?
Fängt an, für die in Sodom Fürbitte zu tun.
Right.
Richtig?
Okay, so anyway, I just want you to see those points, right?
Ich möchte, dass ihr einfach diese Punkte
And
seht.
then he's making them an offering, right? He wants to give them something. Right?
Dann möchte Abraham ihnen hier ein Opfer darbringen, möchte ihnen hier Essen und Fußwaschen geben.
Okay, so we need to look at this much closer, right?
Wir müssen das wirklich viel genauer betrachten.
Okay, so as we go through the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation, I just want us to really think upon the structure. Sorry, Fiona?
Also wenn wir durch das Buch Offenbarung und Daniel gehen, müssen wir an diese Struktur denken.
You know, the offering is the tithe that you bring.
Yes, the tithe, right?
It's
So what is the tithe, spiritually speaking?
Also das Opfer, was du bringst, ist ja der Zehnte. Und was ist das?
Yes, the broken and contrite spirit.
basically
Zerschlagene und zerbrochene Geist.
because we see that in this time that the foot washing takes place and basically well, you either get your feet washed or not, and you bring forth this broken or contrite heart or not, and that's what decides whether the destroying angel is.
Yes,
In
so
der Zeit kriegst du die Füße gewaschen und das entscheidet dann letztendlich, ob du zerstört wirst, weil du dann entweder das zerbrochene Herz hast oder eben nicht.
but the fact is, this is all midnight, right?
Die Tatsache ist ja, dass das alles Mitternacht hier ist.
Okay, so it's really important that we understand this. I don't think we've understood this perfectly the way that we should, right?
Es ist wirklich wichtig, dass wir es verstehen, denn ich glaube nicht, dass wir das schon so verstanden haben, wie wir es sollten.
But definitely there's a difference between the light and the exceeding bright, because when you get the exceeding bright light, you're now getting given all his goods. You're getting given the full revelation.
Aber das ist auf jeden Fall ein Unterschied zwischen dem Licht und dem überaus hellen Licht, denn beim überaus hellen Licht kriegst du dann die vollständige Offenbarung.
Okay, so that's what I want to share for now. I want to keep our minds open, because I'm open. The point I'm open about is that when Jacob has this experience with Christ, it might actually take you to the very end, right? And I'm just open for that. But
Also ich
it also might be here, so I'm not
offen
quite
dafür
sure.
in der Geschichte von Jakob, wenn er diese Erfahrung hat mit diesem Ringen, dass es bis zum ganzen Ende dich führt, aber vielleicht auch nur bis zu dem Licht. Also da bin ich noch
Just
offen.
one second, because when he says, "I'm not let you go until you bless me,"
Er
right?
sagte, ich werde dich nicht gehen lassen, es sei denn, du segnest mich.
And when Melchizedek blessed Abraham, it's marking the point where you become a priest after the order of Melchizedek, right?
Und wenn Melchisedek ja Abraham gesegnet hat, das war ja dann, du wirst ein Priester nach der Ordnung Melchisedeks.
But this is also a blessing, right?
Aber das hier ist auch eine Segnung.
Right. So there's two blessings. We've got to determine which one it was, right?
Es gibt also diese zwei Segnungen und wir müssen jetzt unterscheiden, welche Segnung ist.
So when Jacob gets blessed here, is he bowing 7 times and leading him to that reconciliation? Or is it the end and that's just another story that you lay on top of it? That's my question, right?
Also meine Frage ist jetzt hier bei Jakob, wenn er jetzt gerungen hat und sich dann 7-mal auf den Boden wirft, ist das dann hier in dieser Zeit der 10 oder ist es dort eine neue Geschichte, die dann darüber gelegt werden muss?
We went to Matthew 25, right? 14,
Yes.
Wir sind zu Matthäus 25 gekommen,
where he goes into a far country,
wo er in ein fernes Land geht.
and that's basically the goods that he gives you.
Yes.
Das sind ja die Güter, die er dir gibt.
But when he comes back, what does he do?
Well, he sees what you have
He wants to see there's a better time period before
Aber wenn
the
er
end, right?
zurückkommt, dann möchte er sehen, was du hast und es ist also eine kleine Zeit vor dem Ende.
That's the same you can read in Matthew 24.
Dasselbe, was du in Matthäus 24 sehen kannst.
Verse
Yeah, when he comes, he see what. So where would this point be then, Führer, in Matthew 24?
Wo wäre dieser Punkt hier in Matthäus 24?
Just find the verse there and
well,
turn to Matthew 24, everybody.
Jetzt Matthäus 24.
Yes.
It says
Bis 42 beginnen
the 50.
bis 50.
Watch therefore, for you know not what hour our Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and would have not suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not the Son of Man cometh. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom the Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But if that evil servant shall say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servant, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the Lord of the servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and an hour that is not aware of. So it's basically when he gives you the goods there, he's watching what you do with them, whether you, you're a faithful servant,
So-
or whether you
so
begin to smite your
This
fellow
is
servant.
where he's coming to, because how does Christ come? According to
Also,
Hosea.
Wie kommt Christus gemäß Hosea?
The former and latter rain,
So
right?
früh in der Spätregen.
So this is beginning his coming, right? So he comes here into your heart. This is your first blessing, then followed by the second blessing, right? So
Also das ist der Beginn, die erste Segnung, gefolgt von der zweiten Segnung.
so when that former rain comes, what does he want to see you doing?
Also wenn der Frühregen kommt, was möchte er sehen, dass du tust?
You're giving meat in due season, right?
Dass du Speise zur rechten Zeit gibst.
Okay, so now he wants to see, are you giving them the meat, right? And if you give the meat, he's going to give you all his goods right here, which would be the
Wenn er
exceeded
sieht,
right.
dass du die Speise gibst, dann gibt er dort die ganzen Güter, das ist überaus dich dann ganz am Ende.
So where did you get the meat from?
Denn woher bekommst du die Speise?
It's the 3 loaves that you pleaded with them to give you, right? To set before him. There's the meat in due season, right?
Denn das sind diese 3 Leib, die du gefleht hast, um sie zu bekommen, um sie dann vor ihn zu setzen. Das ist die Speise zur rechten Zeit.
Right? So these things slowly but surely are coming together, right?
Die Dinge kommen langsam aber sicher zusammen.
Amen? Shall we close?
Wollen wir das Gebet abschließen?
Heavenly Father,
Lieber himmlischer Vater,
thank you for your word,
danke dir für dein Wort
and that you show us our duty.
und dass du uns unsere Pflicht zeigst.
I pray that you help us to be faithful servants,
Und ich bitte, dass du uns hilfst, dass wir treue Knechte sind,
paying the tithe and the offering,
dass wir den Zehnten und die Gaben zahlen
and that we give you our whole heart.
dass wir dir unser ganzes Herz geben.
Please, may you break it and help us to present the perfect sacrifice before you.
Möge es unser Herz brechen und dass wir dir dann ein vollkommenes Opfer präsentieren können.
I ask for this day that you may bless us in our daily activities,
Und ich bitte für diesen Tag, dass du uns segnest in unseren täglichen Aufgaben
and that you help us, Lord, to fulfill them faithfully.
und dass du uns hilfst, dass wir diese Dinge treu erfüllen.
Thank you for this in Jesus' name.
Und danken dir dafür in Jesu Namen.
Amen.
Amen.